Okay, today we're going to talk about the sensation accuracy type, or the ESTP in the Myers-Briggs system. This type is also often called the promoter. Before we really get into this webinar, though, I just want to make a note about who this webinar is designed for. There's really three different people I'm talking to. The first is the sensation accuracy genius style themselves, or the ESTP type. I'm talking directly to you, the ESTP. The second person I'm talking to are people who are friends and family of ESTPs and maybe want to get to know them on a little bit deeper of a level. And then the third type of person I'm talking to are people who are getting to know all the types on a more in-depth level. So if I come in and out of pronouns, I say you, they, we, etc. That's normal because I'm talking to a varied audience. But again, I am primarily talking to the sensation accuracy style. Okay. Let's get right into it. Here's an overview. Of all the types, ESTPs are the most driven by adrenaline. Even though other types might crave fame, fortune, glory, ESTPs work tirelessly and live in the fast lane. When they're at their best, ESTPs are the best firemen. They have a gift for taking care of emergencies of any type. They're the go-to and the bottom line. I've known ESTPs who are exceptional at putting out fires, literally and figuratively. They are amazing at the last minute and pulling rabbits out of their hats in order to take care of these emergencies. People of this type can find themselves taking on both the roles of ambitious leader and independent maverick. They refuse to slow down for others to catch their breath and often find themselves excelling very quickly. They oftentimes scale up really quick because they can be workaholics. They can be leaders, other people follow them. Then they can be like, oh, I don't really want to work with other people. I just want to do my thing. They can find themselves in both roles, which obviously both roles are very desirable to a lot of businesses and companies. More so than any other type, ESTPs are always to be found in the middle of the action, right? Middle of the activity. The action hero archetype is invariably ESTP. So like the John McClanes from of the world, right, from the Die Hard movies, that's very much an ESTP type, that action hero archetype. So let's talk about who's in the car. Now, this webinar is a companion piece to the PDF profile. The profile breaks down this personality type and all of the different mental processes that's going on. It uses a car diagram, and I'm gonna walk through the ESTP car diagram, but if you want more information on really how that car diagram works, you should probably consult your PDF right now. So in the meantime, though, we're gonna talk about who's in the driver's seat, who's in the co-pilot seat, who's in the 10-year-old seat, and who's in the 3-year-old seat. And remember, your mind is kind of like a 4-passenger vehicle. So in the driver position of your mind, you have a process called extroverted sensing, or what's nicknamed sensation. To balance yourself out in the co-pilot position, you have a process called accuracy, or what is technically called introverted thinking. Directly behind accuracy is its mirror opposite, the 10-year-old, which is technically called extroverted feeling. Makes sense. It's the opposite of introverted thinking. And that nickname is harmony. And then in the 3-year-old position, which is directly behind the driver because it's the mirror opposite of the driver, is a process called perspectives, or introverted intuition, which is also the opposite, obviously, of extroverted sensing. So what do these 4 positions mean for your personality? Well, sensation is your driver position, and that means when you're using this process, you are actually in a flow state. This juices your batteries, it gives you energy. If you cannot use this process often enough, you will go into a depression. That's how important it is. So the sensation process, what it does for you is it helps you live in the here and now. Sensation loves verifiable information. It loves taking in information with its 5 senses. And it knows, or actually more than 5 senses, right? Because we have other senses like sense of time, we have this, sense of balance, etc. So people who use this love to take in information and understand what's going on in the world, in the real world, using these senses. So what's more verifiable than something you're experiencing in the moment? So in the moment, or right here now, becomes an important time orientation for the sensation type. So this helps them live in the here and now. It also gives them a talent for real world physics. They're so in touch with their body. Sensation people have such high kinesthetic intelligence or body intelligence that they just kind of naturally, understand how real world physics work. I know a sensation driver who has never plays pool ever, ever, ever. But when she watches other people play pool, she can help sort of position the pool stick so that the person will sink the shot every time. So even though she doesn't have any practice with it, she just gets physics enough to be able to help other people sink shots. This also makes them realistic and highly observant. Sensation people read body language like crazy. They pick up all of that because they are just super observant of what's going on. But because they like what is verifiable, it also makes them very grounded in the realistic. They like the concrete. They like the realistic. All right, this is actually what gives you your desire for adrenaline, because sensation loves a sensory feel. It loves that rush you get inside your body. So this is why you can kind of be a little bit of an adrenaline junkie a little sometimes. Maybe not all the time, especially if you're older. You probably have gotten past this time of your life, but this is the part of you that really likes to be excited. This is the part of you that really likes those senses, or those sensations flowing through you. However, if you just use the sensation process, you won't be a complete person. And that's because sensation, first of all, it's extroverted. So it allows you to get in touch with the real world, right? Get real world feedback. Can you tell I used to have a speech impediment? That's what helps you get in touch with the outside world. And then you take in information and understand it through sensing. However, to be a complete person, you also have to get in touch with your inner world, the world inside of you. And you have to be able to make decisions. You can't just understand information. You also have to evaluate it and make decisions based on that information. So you do that using your co-pilot. For you, this is introverted thinking, or what's called accuracy. Introverted helps you get inside of yourself. Thinking helps you make evaluations based on thinking criteria. So usually what this looks like is a strong sense of fairness based on logic, not sentiment. All right. Accuracy. If somebody's got truth, if somebody sounds like they're making sense, it doesn't matter if they're a 3-year-old or if they're a 90-year-old. It doesn't matter. So because of that, there's a sense of fairness that accuracy people have because they're looking for what makes sense. They don't care what the source is. Oftentimes, that gives them a sense of fairness that's based on that logical piece, not so much a sentimentality. So a lot of times, accuracy people are rooting for the underdog because they want everybody to have a fair experience. This also gives them an intense, prolonged ability to focus. So there's a book called The Power of Full Engagement that talks about the mind's incredible ability to focus and how much that gets done when you can put all of your time and attention on one thing. And accuracy helps you do that. It helps you focus and really, truly understand what is basically making sense to you and excel at, and become experts at one topic. Accuracy people are also fearless at calling out what they consider to be truth. This is sort of that, the emperor has no clothes on scenario. That was just a little kid that said it, but it was probably an accuracy kid, right? Because there's not really a fear that you're going to hurt anybody's feelings. It's more like there's a fear that we're all going to pretend that something not true is happening when it's not true, right? Like the bigger fear is that we all kind of go along with a charade and nobody has the guts to call truth for what it is. So especially for this type, the accuracy process is fearless at calling out truth. This will get them in trouble, especially in like school when they're young. This is definitely something that they answer for a lot, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a major skill and talent to be able to call out truth when they see it. Now, you want to be radically honest, which is, you're not really trying to hurt anybody with the truth. You're just trying to call it. So as you're calling out truth, remember, you also have the sense of fairness where you don't really want to hurt anybody. You just want to make sure that you're not pretending along, if there's a pretense going on. Okay, so when you combine those two parts of you, that's your superpower, all right? That's when you become a superhero. It was when you're combining sensation and the accuracy process. And this turns into, I mean, people of your type are often extremely good athletes, extremely good musicians. You have this incredible ability to marry your kinesthetic intelligence with precision, or your body intelligence with being precise. Amazing musicians, amazing athletes. But then at the same time, you'll see people of your type as lawyers, as surgeons, as people on Wall Street, because adrenaline can be found in all sorts of places, right? Matching adrenaline and having a lot of body intelligence with precision, there's a lot of contexts where that can be very helpful. So you'll see people of your type in all sorts of like mechanics jobs. It's just crazy. You excel at so many different things. However, we're going to go to the back seat now and talk about the parts of your personality that might be a little weaker. Now, we'll go to the 10-year-old process, which is harmony, and that's the exact opposite of accuracy. And the way that harmony shows up, well, when it's actually being used well, harmony is all about getting people's needs met, understanding emotions, and, basically connection, human connection. For you, it might be that you're using people's vulnerabilities as ammunition, right? You see what their needs are, and you might use that against them as opposed to filling those needs. Now, the reason why you might use this in this way, we call the 10-year-old the defensive position a lot, because what ends up happening is your driver has come to a conclusion it wants to support, or maybe it has something it wants just in general. For sensation, this could be, ambitious. This could be something, it could be all sorts of things that you might want, that the sensation process might want, but it could be something ambitious oriented or whatever. Or maybe just indulgent, right? Like sensorily indulgent. If you go to the accuracy process and the accuracy process starts going, well, that might not be fair, or that might not be honest for you, right? It might not be in your best interest, but you don't want to hear that information. You'll skip your co-pilot process and go straight to your 10-year-old to support what you want to think. And this happens a lot, actually, for people of it happens to everybody. The 10-year-old's a defensive position for everybody. It happens all the time. But for people of your type, sometimes this will be like, not to be crude, but like, charming a woman into bed, that kind of thing, right? When you have no interest in her. It could be about manipulating somebody else to land a big business deal, right? It could be something to that effect. So this is the way that you're using it defensively, and that's ultimately not very healthy for you, right? Like that's not very emotionally or mentally healthy. Another way that it can show up is that people of this type sometimes have temper issues or anger management issues. You can have you don't throw temper tantrums so much as you get angry. You can get very angry when people don't do what you want them to do. And this is called the bully tactic. It's pretty much using your ability to manipulate other people's emotions, right? Because you kind of get how other people are feeling. And you know that when you're experiencing a lot of conflict or when they're really upset, a lot of times that's a good strategy to get them to do what you want them to do. So people of your type will sometimes rely on their temper or their anger in order to get other people mobilized and doing what they want them to do. Again, not particularly fair, right? Like if you're a person who normally likes the underdog, when you're doing this, you're creating underdogs, right? You've become the quote unquote villain. So the antidote to this, to both of these, is to stop the behavior and go into the accuracy process and ask, you know what? Is this particularly fair? Do I really believe this is the right thing to do? Is this honest, right? I'm fearless at calling out truth for other people, but am I calling out truth for myself? Am I being fair? So that's the antidote. However, on the flip side, you can use the harmony process in a positive way. And generally, this is the part of you that likes to connect with other people, and you can be highly charismatic. So Basically, the algorithm to this is you get good at sensation, but you're already good at it, right? This is your driver process. You're probably going to be pretty good at it. Very few people are not good at their driver. There are some people who are not particularly healthy, but it's a rare situation. So you're great at your driver process, and then you build the skill to get great at your accuracy process, right? You are fearless at calling out truth on your own, right? You'll call yourself out when you're not being honest. You've got a great sense of fairness, and you really know what you stand for. And then, and only then, can you go to the harmony process and start connecting with people and being charismatic, because you don't want to use that tool for evil. You want to use it for good. All right, let's go to the 3-year-old process. Now, we use the 3-year-old process when we're really stressed out. The reason for this is you're primarily understanding the world or experiencing the world through your driver process of sensation. If this is not the right tool for dealing with a situation, if you're trying to solve a problem and you can't solve it through a driver, it will overtax your driver, it will wear you out, and your brain will go, let's give the driver a break by going to its opposite process of the 3-year-old. The problem when it does, it's an amazing mechanism, and it's fantastic that the brain knows how to do that. But the problem is you're already stressed out, and now you got a 3-year-old driving your car. The way that this looks like for people of your type is that they go into the perspectives process, which is usually good at getting inside other people's, minds and understanding their motives. But because you're stressed out and it's an unsophisticated 3-year-old, you can only see the bad motives of others when you're stressed. In fact, sometimes this can make this type a little paranoid, right? Thinking people are out to get them, thinking maybe their mate is cheating on them, all sorts of paranoid, delusional thoughts. But it seems really real to them because they've gone here in a time of stress. Now, again, the mechanism is good, but when it's got control over you, that's when it can look really unhealthy. So if you take control of the mechanism, that's when you can use this process to de-stress. And one way to use this process to de-stress is through quiet contemplation. That doesn't mean TV. You don't want to be passively entertained. You just want to quiet your mind, go to a place where you don't have any, no sensory input at all, and do a very simple meditation. Now, this is not going to feel particularly good, right? Because you're not the meditating type. That's totally understandable. But in these moments, you're not yourself anyway. When you go to that paranoid place, when you go to that place when you're only seeing bad motives, that's not you either. That's an unhealthy expression. So go to meditation, which can be a healthy expression of this. And it can be something super simple. I mean, it doesn't have to be sitting in the lotus position, going, right? You don't have to do that. You can just find some quiet time and maybe just kind of, close your eyes, maybe take a little bit of what looks like a nap, right? Just rest, not really have any sensory output, and go inside your mind and just kind of chill out for a little bit. That will help you sort of let the sensation process relax for a while. And then after 20 or 30 minutes, you should be able to come back and feel refreshed and ready to solve the problem. Your 3-year-old process can be your aspiration. And the way that works is you've got problems that come up from this process being a blind spot for you, because other people would be using that process to solve those problems because it's not their blind spot. So for you, what ends up happening is you have to find creative ways of solving those problems, and that becomes kind of a bigger game issue for you. It becomes something that you usually feel really proud of and want to teach other people. So it becomes your aspiration. And in your case, for ESTPs, the perspectives process becomes an aspiration by encouraging you to see a bigger picture. That it's not about money, fame, glory, or if you're more of one of the adrenaline rush kind of people, it's not just about that. It's about a bigger picture. It's about something bigger than you. And you kind of tap into sort of almost a quasi-spiritual place, right? This can be the piece of you that kind of gets spiritual. Even if you're not particularly religious, even if you're not a person who believes in God necessarily, this is the part of you that kind of connects to something maybe almost magical or ethereal. It doesn't have to be superstitious, but it could be that too. But you tap into something a little bigger than you, and that gives you some peace of mind and some calmness. Let's talk about your type in relationships. It's good to know that people of your type connect with others through shared goals. So, if you really want to connect with people, find people who are into the stuff that you're into. Find people who have the same motivations and drive that you have, and connect with them through your goals. You want to make things happen. You want to be around people who are making things happen, and that's understandable. So find those relationships, including a love relationship if you're not already in one, where people are basically going out for the same stuff that you're going out for. Over any type, ESTPs are interested in material success, which can make for stable finances. Now, this is not always the case, but I personally have not known very many ESTPs who are not industrious, working hard. As soon as they lose their job, they're immediately getting a new job. They can be wheeler dealers on Wall Street, so they can be, incredibly well off. They can be people who are surgeons, lawyers, or they can just be people who are working a day job, like a blue collar job, but they always have stable finances. It's very rare that somebody of this type is not taking care of their family. Now, of course, because perspectives is a 3-year-old, the perspectives and needs of other people are just not on their radar. And they're really not particularly interested in changing this fact, right? So if you're an ESTP, acknowledge your sense of honor and remember your intrinsic sense of fairness. So you don't have to be sentimental, right? You don't have to be somebody who's like mushy-gushy, always checking in, making sure everybody's okay. But you are sensitive to the concept of oppression. So become a champion for the weak and be vigilant to never become the oppressor. So if you've got a family, if you've got a wife, you've got kids, or maybe you've got a husband, you've got kids, you don't have to be ooey gooey with them. You probably are a little on the cuddly side. That's my observation, is ESTPs are cuddly even though they don't let on that they are. They're kind of soft bears inside. But you don't have to be somebody who's always checking in with everybody else's needs. Just make sure that if you do take a colder stance, right? If you are more often in accuracy, which is a little bit more of like an arm's length function, that you're not unintentionally oppressing others, that you're not ignoring them, that you're not creating a context in which they are missing out on you as an important member of their family. ESTPs are prone to workaholism, all right? That might not surprise you. And you can sometimes put your success before your loved one. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Make sure that you're not the person who's, you might not think of somebody who's neglectful of their families as oppressive, but that can feel like an oppressive context. So just remember, what good is success if it's not shared, right? Why achieve it in the first place? Don't forget the fundamental questions of life. Why am I here if it's not to share my success with others? And if you neglect the people that you love and who love you, they won't put up with that forever. So make sure you're getting some balance in your life. People of this type are spontaneous and active, and dull moments are rare. Now, here's something really important to remember about this type. All right. And I've talked about this when I talked about ENTPs, which are my type. So I'm not just picking on ESTPs. There is a tendency for people of this type, if they get too bored, they might have a wandering eye, all right? They're adrenaline oriented, just like my type is exploration oriented, all right? And so if you're not having enough exciting moments, exciting adventures with your mate, if you're married to an ESTP, that is the time when you have to ask yourself, like, why am I not having exciting moments with them? Why am I not sharing their adventures? This type loves adrenaline, right? They love sensory pleasure. So you got to make sure that you're sticking close to your mates, not to keep an eye out on them, but rather just to make sure that you are creating closer and closer bonds through adventure. If you're not doing that with them, it's not that they're bad, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that that they're going to cheat on you. My dad's an ESTP. My parents have not always had a great relationship, but my dad has never cheated on my mom, so it's not like it's inevitable. But you have to remember that it could be a temptation if they're bored. They won't create a dull moment, so make sure that you're with them, not creating dull moments, right? That you're sharing adventures. And this really is very healthy for the relationship. It's very healthy for both of you because you will bond over these experiences. You'll bond over these moments of, fun, exciting times. So make sure that if you're married to this type, that you are not setting them up for failure. All right, let's talk about this type in business. Makes sense. They prefer practical, concrete careers with a lot of earning potential and opportunities for prestige. Makes total sense, right? They've got that piece of harmony in them that kind of likes that social prestige. They like to have a good reputation. And they like the adrenaline of those kinds of deal-making transaction or deal-making careers. I've seen them in marketing. I've seen them as firemen. I've seen them again on Wall Street as surgeons, pilots. Pilots are very common for ESTPs. So they like those practical, concrete careers that have good earning potential. They prefer to be in charge instead of taking orders. However, they don't have to be totally in charge. They either have to be in charge or be autonomous. It is very difficult for them to just be yes men. So if the job doesn't have the prospect for either full autonomy where they can just do their thing, or if they have to work with people that eventually they can be the boss, they might not last in that position. And utilize their ambition. These types are usually highly ambitious, so use that ambition, use that passion for the job, and especially the amazing firefighting ability. They're better, again, at being in charge than following others. So they usually are best paired with somebody who can chart the course, right? So that somebody else who can do some long-range planning while they, make final calls. And so the ISTJ type, which is a chart the course type, is the ESTP power pair combination. So ESTPs and ISTJs get along very well as a power pair. They like to live fast and die hard. The benefit is that they don't feel a lot of anxiety. All right. They're not really anxious people as a general rule. They have kind of this cavalier perspective on life. And they're like, oh, well, I'm living in the moment. And they're very proactive. But at the same time, because not planners or tend to not be long-range planners, they might overspend and they might take on more than they can handle. So with resource management, they might get to a point where they've taken on more than they're able to really be able to deal with. And this is a young ESTP issue. The older ESTPs are usually good enough at determining what they can and can't handle and not taking on too much. But if you're a younger ESTP, this might be something that you need to learn along the way. Use this talent to become a deal maker, right? And not just a deal maker, but a deal maker to be reckoned with. But be careful not to bring a cavalier attitude into the relationship and finances of your family. So live fast, die hard. You might overspend. You might do a deal with somebody where you're like, I don't care what the outcome is. That's all fine. That puts you in a powerful position. Just don't bring that attitude into the family and potentially create disaster for them. Psychology and relationship management does not interest ESTPs for the most part. They are very rarely, sometimes they are, but it's very rare that they're super into psychology or relationship management. So they're going to have to rely on others for solutions that involve human relations. If there's a lot of conflict, ESTPs can get very impatient with it. Figure it out yourself. I don't want to have to deal with your guys' messy emotions, etc. So they might have to bring other talent that is good at relationship management. And generally, ESTPs perform and feel best working in areas where risk, ambition, and proactivity are valued, instead of being diplomatic or playing nicey nice with others. So bring in other talent if you need somebody to play nicey nice. Bring in an ESTP if you need a gunslinger who's going to get the job done. Let's talk about best practices. Exercise the accuracy process. It's so important to make sure your co-pilot process is getting attention and you're growing it like a muscle. You're exercising it like a muscle. And you want to exercise the accuracy process to, one, include the people factor into the equation. Accuracy can help you be radically honest with yourself and those you love, not letting pride or ego get in the way. So you'd think that accuracy would not be good for relationships, but it's just the opposite. When you get to a really highly skilled place of accuracy, what you'll see is you'll see yourself becoming radically honest, and you won't let your pride or ego get in the way. You'll go, you know what? You're right. I got to change this, right? Like that will make sense to you. And you'll share that honesty with your loved ones, and that creates a lot of intimacy. And you also want to exercise the accuracy process to inspire you toward deep expertise. A lot of ESTPs get sidetracked because they don't choose a focus, right? They don't choose an expertise. But once you have direction, you are generally unstoppable. So use accuracy to focus on one thing that you really powerfully love and then become a master at it. And that's when basically your earning potential goes up, your satisfaction of life goes up. It's so important to use accuracy to focus. Again, we've already talked about it with that 3-year-old, but watch out for paranoia. People are only ever trying to get their needs met. They never have purely evil intentions. If they mean you harm, it is only out of fear. Now, this is a philosophical question, right? Some people might say, yes, definitely people have purely evil intentions, and they'll name Pol Pot and Hitler and Stalin, etc. But the truth is that the vast majority of individuals that you run into, they do not have evil intent. Generally, most people are just trying to get by in their life. So watch out for being paranoid against loved ones, mates, co-workers, people in your life, family, etc. Because these people generally have positive intent. And if they do mean you harm, it's because they're scared, right? So cut some people some slack. And you never want to slow down. But all your hard work and ambition is pointless if it doesn't connect you with other people. So turning your high energy into something that benefits others and your desires into something that benefits others is the key to your happiness. So make sure that after all this success that you get, if you are ambitious or after working hard all day, make sure that you're also fostering close relationships with people, because that's really the key ultimately to, your life, happiness, and satisfaction. Thank you for joining me in the Sensation Accuracy webinar. I just want to take a moment to speak directly to ESTPs. Your type is actually not that common. It's actually fairly rare, especially for the sensory styles. And I just want to say, you guys do an amazing job. What you do is tough. All right. You guys are the fearless ones. You're the ones that take care of a lot of issues that other people will not take care of. You're the rebels who call out truth. You're the ones who are the adrenaline junkies who show us what our bodies are capable of. So please, please, please bring your genius to the world. Please bring your talent to the world, because honestly, we can't keep going without you. You are an intrinsic part of the ecology of human beings, and I just really appreciate you being you and bringing your talents to the world.